I was surprised. But I'm excited. Obviously bittersweet leaving an organization that you've been with the whole time. They treated me really well, but I'm really excited for this new opportunity. Honestly, it's been a blessing. Just going to a new team. Sometimes it's hard being the new guy. Especially I've been where I was the whole time. But the baseball world's small. But luckily, that's a brother to me. We actually spent all of quarantine together. So the fact that I got traded to first of all, Padres, being from California is awesome. But the fact that he's on the squad just made everything so much easier for me. I just feel like I'm healthy as far as I don't think my immune system is compromised. I think they labeled me as a high risk, just categorically. I don't feel that I'm actually my immune system is actually compromised. I feel healthy. I feel strong. Obviously be super careful, stuff like that, but I'd be being careful anyways. So I just don't, I want to play baseball
Hey, Tim, I wanted to ask you about your arm slot. Some guys get told to go down there. What's your backstory on the way you throw and why you throw that way?
So I honestly couldn't throw a baseball overhand if you asked me to. I just it's my natural arm slot. I've always thrown like that. I've never thrown overhand. So I've been throwing like that since I was little, since little league always.
Oh, and what does this, kind of homecoming to San Diego mean for you in your baseball journey?
I mean, it means everything. It's awesome. I'm glad to be back in California. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, not too far from here, a couple hours north, but I've actually lived in San Diego before. I went to Palomar Junior College. So I'm very familiar with the area, which is nice, especially, a lot of times you go to a new city and it's tough to, figure out everything that's going on, whatever. So I just feel like that's an advantage for me, just being familiar with the city, being familiar with the state, all of that.
Harder to hit.
Definitely, I would say, and I've seen that, a lot of hitters do struggle with it because they don't get a lot of looks at it. Just like any other pitcher, though, there's guys who see the ball better off of you and they see the ball worse. So, just hopefully more guys see it worse than better. You know what I mean? So.
All right, next up we'll go to Jake.
Hey, Tim, welcome to San Diego. A couple questions for you. First off, I'm curious, obviously you've thrown to guys on both sides of the plate, but I wonder your thoughts on the 3-batter minimum, just given that your numbers are so much more dominant against left-handed batters opposed to right.
I'm not really opposed to it. I actually am kind of happy that I'll get more opportunity to face some righties. In the past, I kind of, just get pigeonholed to you're going to face this lefty and, it's like I'm excited to prove myself that I can get righties out as well.
Welcome to San Diego, and obviously your bout with cancer was well documented. I'm wondering if you could just kind of briefly take us through that and what it taught you and what you kind of learned about yourself in battling through that.
Sure. In 2015, it was my first spring training. In retrospect, looking back, I guess I was feeling a little under the weather, but I kind of just attributed it to being like, okay, this is my first spring training, just a little harder than I thought, but, I was tired all the time. And then through routine blood work, they found that my hemoglobin, which is your red blood cell count, was just way too low. So additional tests, my dad had passed away from colon cancer. So they decided to give me a colonoscopy, and sure enough, they found a tumor. So that kind of derailed my career for the time being. I got surgery. I actually did my chemotherapy here in San Diego. And, I came back in 2016 and was fine. As far as what it taught me is just hanging out there. I met a lot of people who, made friends with a few people who actually ended up passing away. And it just kind of teaches you, don't take anything for granted, and just gave me a new appreciation, I would say, if anything.
Marty Caswell.
Hi, Tim. Dayton Moore seemed pretty torn up about trading you to the Padres. What was that conversation like? And what have you learned about your new teammates and this organization from Matt Strahm?
Yeah, so as far as the conversation with Dayton, it went really well. I got a lot of respect for that guy, just as a GM and mainly as a person. He's an exceptional human being. I've got to know him pretty well over the, last couple years, but it was, like bittersweet, but because of the way they've treated me. But like I said, I'm excited to come here and for this new opportunity. So far, getting to know the guys, everyone's been super welcoming, kind of like with open arms. It really, really helps to have Matt here just because, like I said, he's a brother to me. So that's kind of made the transition a little bit more smooth. But I'm still getting to know everyone, still trying to build relationships, and just, it's obviously a process. You don't get to know people overnight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll go to Dennis Lynn.
Hey, Tim, it sounds like if you were going to get traded, this might have been your number one option, but just wondering, with everything going on in the world and pandemic and everything, what the process actually has been like of getting moved, and whether that's been challenging at all. It seems like it's been relatively smooth, I would guess, from a baseball standpoint, just getting into camp pretty quickly, but just any challenges with that?
As far as like the whole COVID thing,
Yeah, just getting traded during a pandemic and
it's interesting just because, when you fly over, you gotta like, you're super weary in the airport, stuff like that. I think it's just hard. It's a difficult time for everybody, I would say, so I don't want to like say it's harder for me or like us in general more so than anybody else. It's a difficult time. So it's very interesting, but just try to make the best of it,